Hello and welcome to Grow Conversations. I'm your host, Alex Fraser, and on this episode, we have Calvin Krook. Calvin is the founder and director of Motherplant, a medical cannabis brand from Australia. Welcome to the show, Calvin.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant. To get us started, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about Motherplant, the brand itself, and then maybe we'll dig into your personal story a little bit, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely, for sure. Sure. I'll start off with a little bit of how Motherplant was born. We're a patient-led, patient-focused company. Everyone that's involved with Motherplant right now are patients, and we were created out of a necessity for an improved quality and authentic brand in the market. I came from a patient background. I was a medical patient myself. I went into my first ever script. It was very difficult to get scripts at the time. I navigated at least 2 to 3 months worth of red tape and difficult barriers just to get an oil, which then went into some flour. I was super excited. I got my first 2 flowers. I jumped in my car and I opened those 2 bags and I was devastated. It was an abomination on cannabis. In fact, I remember back to it and I went back into the doctor and I asked the doctor to call the company and demanded a company rep come to the doctor's GP clinic to meet with me. And I think back on that now, thinking it's hilarious. Like, no company.
That didn't happen.
It never happened. No. And it's actually a massive company that's and it's, of course, they were never going to come. But that's how passionately I felt about the product. I've been around cannabis for a long time. It started 20 years ago, and it's always been focused around the plant and the genetics. I guess as I grew up, I noticed more and more of the medical attributes and how I was using it. That's what all led to the creation of Motherplant. And now we're a countrywide brand in Australia and every state. And we're focused on the highest quality that we can deliver to the patients, and trying to do our best to improve the whole industry as we move forward into the global market now.
Brilliant. And you mentioned you had a prescription. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your patient journey, I'd love to know a bit more about what cannabis means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it started a long time ago for me. I was exposed to it quite young, and then I started off recreationally. I would class it as a recreational user. As it snowballed and got a little bit older, I realized that I was treating certain parts of me that needed a bit of help, such as anxiety, stress, IBS. I suffered with IBS quite intensely when I was a young teenager going through to my early 20s. I found that cannabis was the best medicine that I found, better than any pill that could deal with those intense flare-ups that would often floor me and have me laying flat on the floor until the cramps would stop. So cannabis was a savior for me there. And then as I left the UK and went into other countries and worked there and spent time there, I was around more of the plant, more of the genetics, and medicated a lot more. It was all around medication, therapy, and minor stuff like anxiety, stress, and IBS. It was only when I was much older in Australia, as a father, I got a virus from my daughter. She got sick. She's fine.
Just when she was first born?
She was first born, very small baby, I think about 7 months old, got a virus. It was just a little snivel and a cough for her, somehow mutated in me and caused absolute havoc. It turned into the shingles virus and destroyed my whole facial nerve. And in Australia, the way viruses work out there is they won't give you antivirals until signs of the virus show up. But by that point, it was too late, and my face got completely paralyzed. So the whole left side of my face completely paralyzed. I had to take my eyes shut at night. I had to hold my mouth up to talk. It was a very interesting experience for a full year, and to walk around with a completely paralyzed face. And with that came a whole bunch of nerve problems and nerve pain. The top of it was the trigeminal neuralgia.
Yeah.
So neuralgia is a very serious nerve condition, super painful, incredibly hard to treat, and unfortunately can flare up out of nowhere and last for hours or days. So the doctors decided to put me on a whole host of pills. I tried all sorts of things from tramadol, Palexia, all the way through to finally ending up on Lyrica, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't even remember the names of them. And it caused some serious damage. It was changing who I was and how I viewed the world. And I needed to get off those pills as soon as possible. So I was self-medicating already with some cannabis, and I was getting it any way I could. And then I started seeing signs pop up about medical cannabis. And that's how I went down the pathway of getting my script and becoming a medical patient. But then I obviously ended up at that point where I was receiving my medicine and not happy with what I was getting. So Motherplant was born, and we're now almost 4 years old. And all of my own medicine is now Motherplant meds. So.
Fantastic. Yeah. You're relying on your own brand now.
Exactly.
What a fantastic position you're in. Let's talk a little bit about medical cannabis in Australia and where that's at the moment. I'd love to get your view on the state of the industry from a patient perspective, if you will, just for our viewers who are,
for sure,
a lot of British viewers might not know what the situation is in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's going on right now?
Yeah. It's a very interesting landscape, as it is actually for every country that's medically legal right now. Even the States, with 41 states being, green, so to speak. It's an interesting period that we find ourselves in across the world globally. We're in this sort of exit of prohibition, right? So that's only going to happen once. And it's happening right now, which is a really cool thing to be a part of, both from a patient and also as a company owner. From the patient side of things, I've gone from I've been a patient even, in all sorts of places like South Africa, Canada, the UK, France, Australia. So I've seen all different avenues of the plant and how to get the plant. I think people these days that are entering into the market as a patient, don't know how lucky they are, from a patient level. You used to be able to have to stand on some street corner and meet some random guy pulling up, or something like that. So it's now a very awesome place as a patient, but still very, very, very new. Even in an industry that's 6 or 7 years old, I'm still seeing people on the daily that have no clue that cannabis is legal medically in Australia, which for me, being 4 years old in Australia now, I'm like, how? If you're self-medicating, maybe if you grow your own, you're a little bit closed and you're in your own little loop. But if you're self-medicating and you're trying to get flower, there's enough around knowledge-wise now to know that medical is available in Australia. So I think that the access we have as a patient in Australia is massive. We've got over 400 brands. We've got tons of different products, from flower to vape to gummies to CBD roll-ons to pessaries to creams, any formulation you can really think of. The one formulation that isn't there are drinks so far. But that's the only one that I'm aware of that isn't there. So from a patient perspective, they've got this choice of any application method, lots of different brands. Yes, a lot of the brand is low quality and we'll get into that. But, a good portion of the market out there is some high quality medicine that you can access. And from a patient level, it's fantastic. So good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So you've been a patient in all these different countries?
Look, yes, a legal patient in Australia.
Sure.
But I've been a self-medicating patient in all of those.
So you haven't
countries.
had a prescription in all these different countries?
Absolutely.
I was going to ask you, what was that like, all these different ways? But no, that's not the case.
No, just self-medicating in all of those countries. So I know how difficult it's been to get my medicine in those countries. And finally being able to access medical in Australia through my doctor, getting it to the pharmacy. I've got a great relationship with the dispense techs in the pharmacy. I can go in there, I can get my meds over the counter. It's a really nice experience. It's a nice environment. And from a patient level, something that we're working really hard on in WA is creating an environment and a safe place for people to medicate and feel comfortable. And there are those spaces now popping up. We've got a rooftop that we use every week for a patient community night that can come along and bring their meds and medicate and talk and relax and chat and be social and get out the house, especially if you're not a drinker. You don't like drinking.
Yeah. I think people often, you sort of talk about those ideas. We have similar things. We have vape, or essentially cafes where people are allowing people to vaporize their medicine from vape spaces or vape lounges. People ask, well, why would you need that? Why do you need to come together and socialize around a medicine? You wouldn't do that with other medications necessarily. I have to point out that other medications don't have the same level of stigma. They're not in this sort of niche box that cannabis is. And therefore, there's a shared experience between patients,
for sure,
medical cannabis patients specifically, that is very different to just going and getting any other medication. But I'm interested to hear more about how you develop Motherplants. You said you very disappointed with that initial prescription. You went around that day and started putting the company together?
Pretty much.
What's the first thing you did?
The first thing I did, this is the very first thing I did, is I went home and I drew designs for a grow facility. At the time, my then partner and I put pen to paper and did this design for a grow facility. And we thought that was it. We're going to go and get funding. We're going to go and put this grow facility in, and we're going to grow what we knew was going to be good, proper medicine. I soon quickly realized that the amount of time and red tape and regulatory stuff that I needed to do to achieve that would have been too far in the distance to really achieve what I wanted as a patient. So on a selfish level, I was thinking about it as a patient, more as a company owner. And I was looking at this, well, how can I get the best possible medicine for myself here in Australia without having to navigate all this, pay hundreds of dollars for medicine that I would bin straight away.
It wasn't worth it.
Straight in the bin. Like not even usable. So it was really a big push from the patient side of things. And I scrapped the grow idea, went to my contacts in Canada, South Africa, who have been growing already for a long period of time. I'd worked with them genetic wise already and had some good links in both of those countries. So I approached them and said, look, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And can we partner? And I said about just getting grow partnerships built in and set up with Motherplant, which essentially means that I find the right grow partner and facility. We connect and we work together, where I integrate with the genetic selection, the pheno hunting, the curation, and the final quality control. So it's really difficult to work with me. And I thank you to the growers out there that actually do work with Motherplant, because I 100% understand how difficult it is to grow, how temperamental it is, and how hard it is to consistently meet the QC levels. And then when you've got someone like me that comes along that, you put all your hard work into this for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and it's not good enough. Go back and do it again.
It must be some horrible moments.
It's really, really tough.
Push it back.
And that's where it comes down to relationships and working on like what the end goal is, right? And if you want to supply the best, then you've got to grow the best. And I've just worked really hard with 3 growers in Australia now, 1 in South Africa, and 3 in Canada.
Fantastic.
And they together facilitate all of the supply from other plants, flour, hash rosin, vape carts, and gummies right now. And I'm really hard on them all in terms of quality. But I think that our sort of end product and our patient satisfaction, and above all, our patient retention is evident of that difficulty.
It's the brand reputation that you've built.
Exactly.
Where's just talking about the different formats that you produce with these cultivations and presumably extractors and production facilities. Which is the most difficult one in terms of maintaining that quality that you're looking for?
Flour.
I was expecting you to say it. I'm not going to lie. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about, so there's tension, I think, in the industry between, you mentioned QC, the quality standards that are expected of medicines, but also herbal medicines, cannabis flower in a medical prescribed context. And then there's also quality in a sort of inverted commas perceptions from a consumer, from a patient point of view.
Absolutely.
And those two things don't always tie up. How does that work for you?
I think that is there's so much there, right?
Oh yeah, I know. I've given you a big
that's good.
Big ball of problems to unpick.
That's really good. For the way I look at it is you're right in the sense that there's two different frameworks and there's two different ways of looking at it. You've got a product that has a cultural following, has a legacy following, and has a level of QC curation and time and passion and effort that's gone into that. Then you've got a COA, a price list, and bulk kilos, and not even a picture of the product. Right. So you've got this like very different world, and then you've got this other very different world, and they're colliding at the moment. In early medical markets, the one on the right, the medical, the clinical, the price list, COAs, no pictures, dominates. Because it's price per gram. It's super cheap. It's often old. And it's just to get product out there because it fits the medical bill. It has a THC percentage, rarely a good terpene percentage. And it literally fits a medical SKU. Yes, it will do something as a medicine, but will it be the same and effective medicine as a 25% living soil grown flower with over 4% terpenes? I would argue to the end of time that they're worlds apart. So I think that you've got two lanes where you've got a medical corporate company that are focused on one avenue, which is volume and profits, and they're picking off price lists and shopping lists and often old product. And then you've got the craft companies, which are bringing forward the legacy, the real genetics, often much more expensive, but you're coming from small craft rooms versus 150 kilo rooms in the corporate world. So it's really difficult for us to do the QC, and to do that, I've set up a QC sort of test that we go through with flower, and it's really extensive, more so than any of the other products.
Tell me about it.
It starts off with aesthetics, and then goes through to terpenes, then it goes through to taste and effects, and then overall score. That's it generalized into 5 sectors. In each of those sectors, there's up to 40 different points that we're measuring.
Wow.
One of the, for example,
you have to send me this template.
Exactly.
We have something similar, but it's not 40 points. So
it's really full on. And as I said, it is particular to flower. Although we can apply it to hash rosin and gummies and vape carts and everything, it really is relative to flower. I'll go into the concentrates in a second. But with the flower side of things, one of the most important aspects of the taste section that we're looking at, you've got already aesthetics and you've got terpenes above that, but in the taste section, we're looking for a really high score of flavor transfer. So what you're smelling on the flower to what you're tasting needs to be really high and have that flavor transfer, so that we don't have any background noise, we don't have any distortion on the flavor, and what you're smelling on the terpenes through the nose is what you're getting on the palate and the taste. And I think 98% of flower I reject on that point alone.
Wow.
It's really hard to make it into a mother plant jar for flower. Canada's done the best. South Africa, I've rejected everything for 2 years. I've only just selected 2 strains from South Africa. You must be popular
in South Africa.
For sure. I'm actually from Durban in South Africa, so I do have a little bit of a little bit of a way of dealing with them, because I get that sort of culture. But again, it's hard to work with someone that's really tough on the QC side of things. So Canada's done well. South Africa, only just recently, I got 2 flowers past QC, and then Thailand, I've rejected everything for 2.5 years. And I just selected 2 flowers for our new affordable range that I think represent the flower really well, really clean, nice ash, good flavor transfer, good purity, and great effects as well. Up until now, everything that I tested from Thailand was burning black and had cardboard terps. So it wasn't hard to reject it. Only now, are kind of making their way into, but only our affordable range. Right. So the same flower that we're putting in our really affordable low end range is the same flower other brands are putting into their top end premium range still. So it kind of gives you a bit of an idea of where our QC scale is with flower. Hash rosin, it's if you don't have experience growing really good flower and finding good genetics as a flower and a keeper cut, I would recommend growing on scale for hash rosin. It's much easier. You just need to find the right strain that puts out the right yield, like the terps, and have someone that knows how to wash hash rosin well.
So it's not the same flower you're selling as flour isn't the flour that you're necessarily making your rosin from.
Not necessarily, no. I've tried.
Yeah.
That's what's really good as a flour sometimes isn't good as a hash.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's no reason why you would necessarily have to make that link. Why would you have to have a flour and then a rosin equivalent of that?
Absolutely. Like for example, that flour, for example, is a great representation of a good flavor transfer on the flour.
Yeah.
But in the hash rosin side of things, it doesn't quite transfer as well as it does on the flour. And it's all about trike size, how well it washes, what the heads are like, all that sort of stuff. We can do a whole hour just on hash rosin if we like. But
next time.
Essentially, what we look for in the hash rosin is we've got 3 tiers. We've got affordable tier down the bottom, then we've got mid tier, and then we've got top tier. And they're just separated in the microns, and the genetics are the main driver of that. So we go heavy on the genetic side of the selection of the hash rosin, but much easier to get good flavor with hash versus flour.
And your hash rosin products are coming from Canadian flour?
No, they're all Australian grown right now.
Okay. Yeah. And you do scale in a different way. It's not it's not the craft flour production in the same way.
No. So the hash rosin, for example, in that we have out on the market now is all living soil, full sun.
I was going to ask about living soil. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
I suppose it's because it's becoming an extract that you can do living soil.
Yes.
So if you were doing, and this is, so for those who don't, living soil is essentially soil that's quite high in microbiome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And earthworms, all sorts of things. Yeah.
But if you did that to try and create a flour for the medical market, it would never pass the QC for microbiome, basically.
No, I mean, essentially you're e-beaming flour anyways, right? So you could grow living soil for medical. We do have
You'd have to irradiate it.
Most of the time.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
We do have a Canadian producer that works out of BC that grows some of our flour, and they're a living soil. They're full beds, living soil. The beds are about 3 years old already. The facility is really great. They've got glacier melt water feeding into the facility.
Sure.
It's really like out of like an Evian advert. It's pretty crazy. And they've actually met under microbes a couple of times for a few of their grows. And if you put your hand in the soil and pick it up, it's earthworms. They've got mushrooms growing out.
I can't conceive of how you end up with less microbe, within the limits of and there's different limits for different countries. I can't remember off the top of my head what the limits are for Australia. I won't put you on the
we've got the toughest in the world.
It is tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't
200
that's
CFUs.
Yeah. I think ours is similar on the one of them is slightly higher, on the other. One is higher. It's
impossible. Really
crazy low
on a consistent level.
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel about the dryness regulations? Because we talked, you were sort of like, there's the QC and there's the COA stuff, and I was going to get you to dig into what's on a COA, but we're getting there too anyway. How do you feel about the dryness regulations from the pharmaceutically imposed?
Yeah, look, for me, I make sure I actually sign agreements with a few of our cultivators that we select flowers between sort of 13 and 15% moisture.
Sure.
I think anything below that is detrimental to the product.
Sure.
I haven't had any issues releasing flour within that 13 to 15% moisture.
Is that not? So what's the cap in total? Because in ours, for the UK, it's 12. We cannot go below 12.
So with is that residual ash? Or is that just moisture content?
That's moisture activity.
Okay, all right.
Water activity.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar in Australia. Yeah, because by the time we have the product GMP packed and out to market.
Oh, so you're testing it, and then when you finally get there, so it starts off a little high.
That's right.
It sort of dries it
for sure
into compliance.
Exactly right.
Maybe that's the way, and
it is the way.
Yeah,
it has to be, because I've even recently taken out humidity packs out of our jars because we're putting it in with slightly higher moisture, so that by the time it reaches the market, it is at that perfect sort of curation. We're meeting all of our levels with the moisture content at that 12 sort of to 13% there, and it's dropping to about 11% once it gets into jars.
Okay, well and then it's
but it's actually something that's never been questioned with me on any of our releases in terms of moisture content. So it's something that I'll look at for our releases here in the UK. Just to make sure that
you'll have to get pushback if you're not under that. But I do think so we had, in the earlier days, product was generally speaking very dry, and they did change the regulations from, it was 10 and then it became up to 12. And I'm never sure why they did that, because you wouldn't think the regulators are right. Yeah, this product's too dry. We better give them more allowance so it can get a bit more sticky. Why would they wouldn't be engaging with that? But maybe they did. I honestly don't know. Maybe there were reports back from suppliers saying that's too low, it's unreasonable, or producers maybe. But I think what happened was people would produced to that level.
Right.
And like you say, there'd be the process of the supply chain after production.
Yeah.
And it would drive further.
Down to 6%.
And it would be, very dry.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that was very difficult, I think.
For sure. I think it's still a problem today, even in a more mature market like Australia, right? Like, I think that over 50% of the flower products on the market, I would argue, are too dry.
Yeah.
It's still a very frequent problem that you see pop up on the forums with patients that can post up reviews or pictures of their product. And it's one of the leading causes of disappointment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It hasn't got the right moisture content.
That's why I wanted to
get your
view on it.
No, it's for me, it's a luxury to be around all of the grow facilities and the production side of things, because we get to see fresh terpenes, we get to see fresh cannabis, and we have all of those volatiles intact, right? By the time it gets to the patient, in almost all medical aspects right now, it's at least 3 months old.
Yeah.
Even if I've done everything perfectly, even in Australia with our Australian grow flower, there's only so much I can do, right?
Even when it's domestic,
when it's domestic,
is it just the amount of time it has to take to get registered?
Totally. Lead time for packaging.
Pharmacists have to onboard it into their lists. Yeah. Then it has to be prescribed. Then it has to be delivered.
Yeah.
It's a whole process.
Exactly. So we can get a crop that's cropped out, trimmed up, e-beamed into market within 4 weeks. But then it's still, by the time
it's mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. That's really impressive. For those who don't know, that's bloody fast.
It's super fast, but it's only for our Aussie grown.
Yeah, so the domestic stuff. Sure.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
without the all flying around the world.
Exactly, that's right. Because that's what chews all the time up. I just got confirmation this morning that we've got that our permits from Canada have come through, so we're finally getting our next round of Canadian flower. But that's a perfect example. We've had every box ticked for about 4 weeks now, and only then can we get it across the line because of permit times and the application times and all that sort of stuff. So unfortunately, we're in a market that you can't forecast for either. So
no, you never know what you're going to need. Whether you're going to need more kilos than you're expecting, or whatever it is. Yeah, what a beautiful position to be in that we can talk about hundreds of kilos.
For sure. It's exactly that, right? Sitting at a pub in Winchester with my old school friends the other night, and talking about having 100 kilos of product up in the air is quite surreal. And to know that we're doing such good with it as well, it's awesome. I got a message this morning from a patient in Australia saying that one of our products has completely changed his life, which is awesome. And it's just someone who suffers from really high level ADHD and anxiety. So nothing crazy, nothing
that can be very detrimental.
For sure. For him, it was the one thing that was stopping him in life, and now he's cruising through things. So
I was actually going to bring it up earlier when you were talking about your health journey, because you started off saying you sort of had I think you described it as sort of the lesser end of the spectrum in terms of, and I presume you meant sort of symptom severity, conditions, and obviously you had the infection and your situation progressed, and you've experienced. You talked about cramps, and I was like, I can really relate. I'd be on the floor and just not be able to do anything because you've got cramps. Yeah. We haven't even, I'm a Crohn's patient, so I know all about, bowel issues. But, to sort of be like, the stress and the anxiety thing is often where these conditions potentially derive from.
Totally.
It's an imbalance in terms of your stress or hormones that can trigger these things.
For sure.
So I think we can underplay that lower end of the spectrum in symptoms. I think it's really important that we talk about medical cannabis for those, again, lesser things. I don't like using that term, but the potentially perceived lesser severe conditions.
For sure. Yeah. They are seen like that though.
Yeah.
Right? That's absolutely how
I know we're dealing with people with cancer, we're dealing with people with multiple sclerosis and Parkinsonism and really severe neurological conditions, epilepsy in young children, absolutely. But we shouldn't not talk about cannabis for anxiety, because it's huge and it does so much good for people.
Well, it's the biggest
killer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you'll hear often many of the leading heart doctors talk about the number one killer is stress, right? So you'll find that a large percentage of the black market out there of the recreational, I'll do a quotation marks because I do believe that everyone who classes themselves as recreational is a medical patient.
Okay. I was going to ask you exactly that.
I do think that. I think that every recreational user out there has got a percentage that they're medicating. Yeah, right.
They're finding some benefit
for sure, right? If it didn't work for them, it wouldn't. I don't think cannabis is a substance that someone can just do if it didn't work for you. I think that the amount of people out there using cannabis on the black market and self-medicating are medicating themselves. Sure, there's a little bit of a therapy application there. Then there's a bit of recreation there too. But I think everyone that's on the on the traditional market needs to understand that they can access medical cannabis for those lesser things like stress, anxiety, ADHD,
Exactly.
IBS, for me, as I say, we were talking about it, lesser symptoms, like lesser symptoms is one thing, but we've both been flat on the floor, crippled by cramps. So like for me, having to take 2 Buscopan and then wait half an hour whilst like reeling in pain is much less effective than having 1 draw on hash rosin.
Oh yeah.
And within 5 seconds, having everything stop. Like that for me is crazy.
Yeah. And we've just had sort of rosin products launched in the UK for the first time. So that's a whole new world for us. We actually do have them in a cartridge format.
Yeah.
And now we finally got the loose one. In fact, they're not quite landed yet, so it'll be like the next week or 2.
Nice.
But what does that format do that flower doesn't? It's both an inhaled medication.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the reason why we would want an extract versus the flower product itself?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've got in Australia is dosing limits and intervals.
Sure.
I think that almost every patient I know has got to the end of their interval or their dosing limit and has run out of their flower.
Yeah.
Some days they've had a really bad nerve flare up or they've had a really bad muscle spasm and they've had to use just that little bit more to kind of calm it down. And because it isn't understood yet and they haven't quite understood the endocannabinoid system being an individual system with everyone. It's not this blanket, take 2 pills and you're fixed.
No,
doesn't
very
work
personalized.
Like
tolerance is personalized.
Exactly. And unfortunately in Australia, the flower dosing is between 1 gram and 2 grams per day. You're not going to get more than that, and I mean, like, yes, you can probably make that work a little bit. But for someone who uses a lot of cannabis for heavy nerve flares up, heavy pain management, sleep issues, all stuff that I deal with personally. The next thing that I wanted to use was something that I could rely on that can help me with those big, breakthrough pain moments where I'm having a huge flare up. And instead of using 30-40% of my entire 10 days worth of flower in one sitting, I can have 0.3 of hash rosin and I can have 1 or 2 inhales of that hash rosin and it's the exact same medical efficacy as me using 2 or 3 grams of flower in one go. So that concentration there for me on a medical level and dosing level helps with reduction of inhalation, reducing the amount you use. And in an industry where there's doctors freaking out about how much they're prescribing, even at that crazy low dose, there's so much misunderstanding about it that they're still freaking out about how much they're prescribing. So it helps in an industry where there's worry about that to then bring in something that actually reduces what a prescriber has to dish out.
I think that's the perception is because it's concentrated, patients will be consuming more.
100%. So that's a hard one that we fight on the daily. We were the first brand in Australia to release hash rosin.
Really?
And we've got 5 strains out on the market now, all living soil, full sun, all full spectrum. There's 2 ones that are slightly higher micron fraction. So we don't class them as full spectrum. So full spectrum, I mean 45 microns to 159 microns. So you're bringing all of the cannabinoids from that plant into the medicine. And for us, those conversations have kind of been a lot of maths, really, to be honest, because like it's, as you say, a doctor looks at it and thinks, oh crap, 70% THC, like, holy moly.
It sounds very strong.
It does sound very strong, right? And like what you want to try and do is you want to try and get the prescriber to understand that it's actually not that high of a percentage, right? When you're giving a patient a script for 28% THC, 10 grams of flower, you can give a patient 2 jars, 4 grams of hash rosin at 70% THC, and you're giving the patient the exact same milligrams for that dosing period. Right. So it comes down to a patient preference at the end of the day. Does the patient prefer inhaling flower, which even if you're vaporizing it, still has contaminants, it still has potential carcinogens, it still has all of those worries. Hash rosin unirradiated, chemical-free, no carcinogens, the cleanest and safest form of inhaling cannabis, right? So it's very difficult for a prescriber then to say, well, actually, that's not good. Well, everything that you're describing is a benefit to the patient. It does just have a little bit of a mindset change. The challenge that we have as well is that it's viewed as something that can be abused, right? So it's just about navigating, every product out there can be abused.
I was going to say that. Yeah, exactly. We provide sublingual oils that are some are 50 milligrams THC per milliliter, which is sort of about as strong as they get in terms of THC, in terms of potency. But we do a screw top with a pipette in it. But you can take the screw top off, and if you really wanted to, I never would recommend it. Yeah. But in a worst case scenario, you take the screw top off and you down the thing. I mean, we trust patients to follow their prescribing guidance. And I think we need to do the same. Were the clinicians in Australia, have they gotten over that fear, and are they more comfortable with these?
Yes and no.
Sure.
Yes and no.
Some have.
I think the hardest thing that we face in Australia as well is the constant moving hurdles from the regulators. It doesn't make things easy for us out there. So if we put in a bunch of work and we bring these products to market, and then all of a sudden 6 weeks down the line, after getting it out to a bunch of patients, all of a sudden the regulator comes along and says that they're looking at reducing THC that's allowed for formulations in Australia. So all of a sudden they put out a notice saying that they're doing a look at potentially capping it at 25%, for example. And then all of a sudden doctors have a freak out and start prescribing overnight. So we've run into some really serious roadblocks when it comes to the release of hash rosin. But we went through it for over a year, just constantly having those meetings, constantly talking to the regulators, constantly talking to prescribers, and also having a very, very, very present and significant patient force and pressure. Because we have got a big following, and people know that we're trying to release this. And when they're talking to the doctors about wanting to change your flower and have a different product, something that they can manage better and dose better, and medicate easier. It was a bit of a combo with our brand, our products, the way we QC, the way we grow, and also our network and how we brought that to the market. And now we've seen 4 or 5 other brands now release hash rosin after us. So I mean, from the way I look at it now, as a rising tide raises all ships. We've got so many patients onto the hash rosin now that I don't think the regulators can.
The sky didn't fall in, did it?
Well, no, right? Exactly. It's in fact what I've seen across the board from our prescribers is that a resounding positive feedback.
Wow.
Not just the patient. We get 10, 15 patients every week.
You and I know the patients respond to this positively.
Exactly. They're
respond positively,
exactly.
But the clinicians are seeing
exactly. When you get the doctor phone you, at 8 p.m. at night, and be like, hey, just so you know, I've had X amount of people this week. Completely changed their entire existence.
Amazing.
So it's gone really well. It's difficult. It's still difficult every day that we're out there, but it's become one of our most successful SKUs now, and that's why we're bringing 3 of those products to the UK for UK patients.
I will be bugging you for more info on how you've managed those conversations. I think we're like I say, we're literally just about to set sail on this this extract sort of voyage, and we've not had any significant pushback yet to my knowledge, but I'm expecting clinicians to be concerned. I'm expecting regulators to have potential questions about potency and all these things. So it'd be wonderful to hear. Perhaps we can talk to some of your doctors in Australia that have seen positive outcomes, because that's I do wish, a bit of a get me on my soapbox, but I do wish there was an element of trust. I think we've got clinicians who work in the UK that there was the same issue with cannabis, just as in prescribing cannabis, that they were nervous about it. They didn't really get it. There was enough patient demand. They started to prescribe it. They saw the benefits in their patients, and some of them are now hugely enthusiastic about prescribing cannabis. Some of those same doctors, I'm worried will have the same fear about extracts and new formats. And I think it's that thing of, this is all really cannabis at the end of the day. Yes, there's different types and different potencies, and we can, you have to personalize for the patient and what their needs are. I'm not suggesting these things are appropriate for everybody. But to take that at face value, and, it's never going to be as harmful as, I won't name them, but certain pharmaceuticals that we know cause certain numbers of deaths every year. I mean, it's still cannabis.
Totally.
I think just having that realistic conversation and not
for sure
throwing baby out with bathwater.
That's right. I mean, one of the biggest, pitchforks that I can describe in the market in Australia right now is that that they are using the psychosis pitchfork, right?
Yeah.
So that's something to be aware of, I guess, in the UK when you do start releasing things. Yeah.
We have that with just general prescription access. Right. At the moment, there's been a few media pieces that have really highlighted that narrative.
Sure. And it's unfortunate because it is just, it's something that is being used as a bit of a tool to kind of redirect certain things in the market, especially in Australia. But you know what they don't talk about with those admittance into hospital and those A&E turn-ups is that a whole myriad of crazy medications plus history that wasn't disclosed, and then on top of that, illicit drugs that are in the system as well that are A class. And then all of a sudden, out of that entire list, right down the bottom, medical cannabis gets put on the front page. I mean, it's
exactly
it's
the same. It's exactly the same as we get here. We have people who commit generally horrendous crimes. And if it turns out they were a cannabis user, prescribed or not, that's the detail that ends up in the headline. But these people were clearly unwell in severe ways and drinking alcohol, doing other things in their lives. But it's because that's part of their life. Now it's being it becomes causal in the narrative that's moving forward.
Well, look, my one thing with the doctors out here, I mean, I haven't had the chance and the opportunity to go out and speak to the doctors here in the clinics here. I'm sure I will over the next few months, right? As the products come into the UK. And I'm assuming that they're going to have a very similar outlook to the GPs and the clinics and the doctors in Australia. And what I see in Australia, I see the beginnings of here. I mean, going to Cannabis Europa the other day, it was like seeing, it was like seeing the Australian industry 4 years ago. Right. So like I can see like how that's tracking. I can see where we're kind of heading, and I'm hoping that we go down a similar but different path. With it, and I can already start to see that with, for instance, driving regulations out here for patients, right?
So you're allowed to drive in the UK. So we have two different potential criminal activities in the UK. One is driving whilst impaired, and the other is driving with THC or any other drug, the impairing illegal drug in your system. And I've touched on it there by saying illegal. The latter, you have a medical defense if you have a prescription. So you should not be convinced. It does happen. The legal system is complicated and nuanced, but you shouldn't, in the eyes of the law, get have any sort of punitive action for driving with THC in your system. But if you're impaired, then certainly, of course. I think that's reasonable. I think anyone should be driving impaired.
Totally.
But you and I know cannabis stays in the system a long time.
That's it.
Long after impairment has worn off. And our limit is 2 solo. It's 2 micrograms per liter of blood, which is a fraction of all. Even those who consumed a week ago are probably going to test positive.
Absolutely.
And a guy called Richard List, who I interviewed on this podcast a couple of episodes ago, if you want to check it out. But who's a brilliant, I can't sing his praises enough, because you really don't, he's a very high-ranking police officer, and he's coming to the end of his career, and that you won't mind me saying. Doesn't have to engage with this space and do all this work and essentially do this advocacy but our whole guidance for how police should operate. Sadly, I don't think they've all seen the guidance, and that's not necessarily seeped through. So what are your plans for the UK? I heard you mentioned you've had these partnerships with cultivators across the world. What is Motherplant bringing to the UK? We obviously can't talk about specific products or prices or anything like that. But I'm very interested to know what's going on for us UK patients.
For sure. I've spent a little bit of time across Cannabis Europa and the lead up to Cannabis Europa, reconnecting with some of my old friends back over here and talking to Paddy as well, checking out the UK market and seeing what's available, seeing what's here, seeing what you guys have already got on offer. I've settled down with 3 flowers and 3 hash rosins.
Amazing.
To start off with, we're going to bring the 3 hash rosins in along with 1 flower. Start with that, and then we're going to add in a couple of flowers as we go. The whole premise behind it all is we're bringing our curation, our QC, our authenticity, and our brand popularity and following to the UK patients, so that they can see what we've been doing in Australia. They can see the quality that we provide the patients in Australia. As I said earlier, we are patients ourselves. The whole reason Motherplant exists is because we were patients that were unhappy with the quality of medicine that we were getting in Australia. From what I see something very similar over here now. It's not a blanket rule.
It's getting a lot better. but
it's definitely getting a lot better, and that's the way it should do, right? And there'll be more companies like Motherplant. I won't be the last that comes across with a lot more genetic experience, a lot more access to craft grows across the world. We aren't buying or purchasing off generic shopping lists. A lot of the bigger corporate brands are. We're working directly with grow partners, often choosing the genetics, doing the pheno hunting, popping the seeds, and then selecting the product and making sure that it's the right fit for the patient and the market that we're entering it into. So the first flowers that will be coming across will be from Canada, followed by South Africa, and then some Australian flower as well. What order we do that in might be a little bit jumbled up depending on what's going to be ready first and how we want to do it. But essentially, we'll be bringing in a really, really nice breeder cut that we've selected ourselves. There won't be anything else that's like it. Very, very nice flower, brilliant flavor transfer, and great medicinal effects as well, coupled with our hash rosins, which will all be coming from our living soil farm in South Africa. I didn't say South Africa, I meant Australia, sorry.
Yeah.
Our living soil farm just outside of Melbourne. 3 of our strains of hash rosin are all grown there, where the plants are fresh frozen at the peak of ripeness and then straight into the glass freezer where we wash it and create our hash rosin. So you're getting the full expression of the Aussie sun, Aussie terps, full living soil, outdoor grown. It's very difficult to recreate those sorts of terpene levels and those sorts of esters and volatiles with indoor grows. Mm-hmm. That being said, our flower is all indoor grown. For cleanliness, for consistency, for QC, and for the genetics that we're working with as well. So the Canadian farm that we're working with is a very, very high quality producer. We've already released 5 of their strains in Australia. So we'll be bringing a couple of their strains to the UK. The South African grower based out of Cape Town, beautiful facility, and doing some excellent work with the top end genetics. And one of our favorite crosses that we're working with at the moment, followed by the Australian flower that we'll bring out to the UK in a range where we're hoping at a little bit more of an affordable price point as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And can you give us an ETA on these things? I know these things are never set in stone.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one, but at this point in time, I'd say we've got the 3 strains of hash rosin will be coming into the market within the next 2 to 3 months, and the flower that we select to go alongside those will be releasing at the same time.
Great.
So pending import permit application times and manufacturing and packaging lead times, we're looking at that sort of realistically end of July mark. I know I was pushing the team to get a bit sooner, but realistically speaking, with what we have to do with wait times for permits either side, both export for Australia and import for the UK, I think the realistic time frame is end of July. So looks like we'll have some nice summer selections for everyone to go forward with, and then the plan is to just keep growing it from there. In Australia we've got 14 different flowers, 3 different vape carts, 2 different gummies, 5 different strains of hash rosin. Wow. So the plan is to bring the majority across to the UK as well. It will just be a slow build up from the end of July onwards.
Wow, that is super exciting. Music for my ears.
Absolutely.
God, thank you so much for sitting down with us, Calvin. It's been super insightful. Before we finish off, we do a little bit of a quick fire round. Sure. Just throw some questions in your way. Nice, quick, snappy answers. Some of them I'll try and keep them snappy. I appreciate it's difficult.
Sure.
We're very opinionated, us patients in this space. Yeah. Okay. Let's get cracking to it. Just 5 of them. Quick fire. What's the most overrated thing in or about cannabis or the industry?
Most overrated thing in and around cannabis.
It's a hard one.
That is a hard one. I'd say the most overrated thing in and around cannabis is the THC levels.
Sure. Yeah. Don't need high THC. No. Everyone says that. Literally, I think. Not for that specific question.
Okay.
I swear every podcast someone says we shouldn't be chasing high THC.
No. It's in flower, for sure. Yeah, it's the last thing I look at for selecting flowers.
Most underrated thing in cannabis. What should people be aware of that they're not?
Most underrated thing in cannabis, they should be aware of where their medicine comes from.
Yeah, perfect answer. One thing you would like doctors to understand about medical cannabis?
I would like them to understand that high THC products are not something that can be abused. They're something that can actually reduce inhalation and help smoking cessation and reduce the need for THC.
Oh, nicely put, like that. And last but not least, what is one thing you would like patients to know about Motherplant that we haven't said already?
Sure.
There's lots of things you said. I'm sure patients will be happy.
I would love everyone to know that Motherplant is an authentic brand. We're here for the authenticity of cannabis and the passion of genetics and cannabis, and that comes first before everything. And I'm here for the people.
Beautifully put. Thank you again, Calvin. Thank you, everybody, for watching us.
Thank you.
On this episode of Grow Conversations. We'll be back with another episode very shortly.